Hello, good people. Welcome back to our today's session. In this channel, we learn about advanced Excel. We learn about business data analytics. We also learn financial reporting and advanced financial reporting, financial management and advanced financial management. But today, I would want us to continue with what we were covering. We were covering advanced Excel lesson, but it is going hand in hand with business data analytics because business data analytics is an examination which is based in Excel. So having the knowledge of advanced Excel is goes hand in hand with business data analytics. So there was this question here that we were discussing, and if you're new in this channel, I would ask you to go to the previous videos where we did the previous discussions, and we've covered a lot of advanced Excel tips and lessons. So kindly endeavor to go through the videos that I posted before in this channel, and also remember to subscribe and follow this channel so that you do not miss some of these very useful lessons for you. So let's look at what we've already covered. Now, if you look at the question that we have, part A, Roman 1, we used a goal seek, which is a sensitivity analysis tool in Excel. In Roman number 2, we used data table. Data table is also a functionality in Excel. And if you review the previous video, the previous class, which I posted here, I explained that data table is, has two types. It's divided into two. We have one variable data table, can also be called one tail data table. Then we also have two variable data table, can also be called two tail data table. So we handled Roman number 2 using one tail or one variable data table. And I believe if you are here in our last session, if you've reviewed through the video, you are at par. If you haven't, kindly go back so that you are not floating or maybe you're not left behind. Now, today I would want us to dive deeper. And before I go to the next bit, which is part C, in Roman number 3, part A, we did scenario manager. And when we did the scenario manager, I explained to you in bits the circumstances when you use goal seek, the circumstances when data table applies, and where goal seek and data table cannot be used. Now you go a notch higher and now you apply scenario manager, where now you are varying variables beyond 2, and all of them are being varied at the same time, and what is the effect on the output. And in this our case here, output was NPV. So if you review the last class video which I posted here, you realize that we were varying all these 4 variables. We have in discount rate, initial cost, starting cash flow, then growth rate, initial cash flow. We were varying all of them at the same time, and scenario manager handled it so nicely, and we had our output. Now, if I can review the output which we had last time, the scenario summary. Let me just show you what the scenario summary is showing me there. Now, that is the scenario summary that we were able to generate in our last class. Now, this scenario summary, where we are having the scenarios from base case scenario, scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario number 3, with all these variables that were changing. Changing cells or initial investment, cash flow in year 1, or you can also call it initial cash flow, then growth rate in that cash flow, then the cost of capital or the discount rate. Now, I also believe you remember how we were able to name the cells so that these names of changing cells could show the way they are doing here. So if you've forgotten, it is high time you go back to that video so that you refresh your mind and you'll be able to remember how we did the naming of the cells using the formulas tab. Then we used the name manager where we defined the name of the cell, and we used create from selection tab. You see that? So if you've forgotten what we did, kindly go back and review the same. Now, there is something that examiner can be able to ask you at this point in time, or there is something that you need also to know beyond just getting the scenario summary. Now, without scenario summary, in case you are required to come up with a chart to display the scenarios with the various NPVs, How are you going to go about that? Let me show you in just a minute. Now, in case you are given, you are asked to maybe present the same output using charts, you'll just very simply come there, and then I want to pick the scenarios from the best case scenario like that. And I want to pick it up to scenario number 3 because those are the scenarios we have there. Then I want to pick, so this is scenarios. Then I also want to pick the NPVs. So the NPV under best case scenario was that one, and we pick the NPVs for all of them up to scenario number 3 like that. So these are the scenarios and then the NPVs. Now, if you want to present this one using a chart, you will just come here, highlight whatever data or whatever the summary you want to present in a chart. Then you go to Insert tab on your Excel window. You come to Charts, and I do not want to go to recommended charts. I can even go to the recommended charts, where now Excel makes it simpler for you by suggesting which charts you can be able to use. Now, if you look at the charts that are recommended, you can see we have the clustered column chart, and under each and every recommended chart, you can be able to see a brief description of what that chart can be able to represent best. Now, clustered column chart, sorry, you can see we are told a clustered column chart is used to compare values across a few categories. Use it when the order of categories is not important. Yeah, so you can see there is also the pie chart there, and you've also been given some brief description of pie chart. So when you are presenting this data using charts, you have to choose a chart which will best display or describe your information. There is no specific chart that you must choose, but then choose that which you feel will best represent your data. So at this point, I cannot be able to pick a pie chart because I want to show the NPV values. So if I come to this clustered bar, we can see the arrangement. There is at base case NPV is 0 as you move like that. So I can even go ahead and pick the first one like that. So even if I want to check the other types of charts, I will come to the all charts here. Then you can see you can even pick line. Yeah, you can see line is there, but line is best displaying, or maybe is best used where you want to show a trend like that. So you can choose pie chart, bar chart, area, scatter, and there are various categories of each and every chart type. So I would just go with the column. I would go with the clustered column, and I can pick the clustered column. There is stacked column, there is 100% stacked, there is declustered column. Let me just pick the clustered column like that. So if you just go ahead and pick the clustered column, you'll see the chart will come there. Then you can very fast do the editing of your chart. You can change how the chart is displaying there. You can change the appearance. You can change color. Just if you want to do that, come to the chart design. Under chart design tab, you can be able to see I can choose various chart designs. I can even go ahead and pick that one. I can even go ahead and change the color. If I do not want that blue color, I can change the color to that. If I don't like that color, I can go ahead and change it to a different color. I can pick maybe that color. I can even change to, I don't know whether that is yellow green. I come and pick green there. Yeah, so you can always edit it out. And if I want to change the chart style, I can still go ahead and change the chart style. You can see the style is changing. Beautiful. So you can be able to always play around with the type of chart you want to use to present your data on that dashboard. Yeah, so you can be able to do that. Then whenever you use charts to represent your data, remember to always label the axis. So you'll come here and say my y-axis, these are NPVs like that. Then on my x-axis, I will say that these are scenarios like that. These are scenarios. So you can always edit and change the arrangement of the chart. You can change the design and things like that. You can resize the chart, and you make sure also you can be able to maybe input the title of the chart so that your presentation looks complete. So you can be able to do that so that your work looks orderly. Now, that was just a bit that was not asked by this examiner in this question, but it is good knowledge. It is good for you to know how to present that your data using charts and graphs, and how to play around with the charts and graphs. Now, let's move to the next thing that we are supposed to do. We've exhausted on, we've not necessarily exhausted, but we've checked on the sensitivity analysis tools, starting from the goal seek. We went to a data table. Now we've also just discussed scenario manager, and we are moving a notch higher, and we are going to check on the next thing, and it is the data table, but where we are changing or varying two variables at the same time. We call it two-tailed data table or two-variable data table. But before we do that, I would want us to look at question part C. And it is in part C that we are going to apply that concept, but at Roman 2 level. Now, let's look at that question. It's saying, assume that an investor takes an investment loan of 150 million. The loan is for 48 months at an annual interest rate of 15%, which the bank translates to a monthly rate of 15%. That is 15% by divided by 12 months is equivalent to 1.25% per month. The payments are to be made at the end of each of the next 48 months. Required. Calculate the monthly payment on the loan. Then, Roman 2, assume that you have the following options to negotiate with the bank. Now, I do not want to go to that part of negotiating with the bank first, because that is a different, that is where we'll be required to go to data table, two-tailed data table or two-variable data table, but I want us to look at Roman 1 first. Now, if you review through the previous videos that we did before, I already brought to you a concept of loan amortization. That's what the examiner also requires us here to do. So it is something that we've done before, and if you did not get a chance to review that video, kindly go and check it out. You'll be able to find this one very easy. Now, let us just do the same that we already did so that we remind ourselves. Now, I want us to do Roman part C, Roman number 2. Part C, Roman 1, sorry, Roman 1, like that. Now, part C, Roman 1 is about loan amortization. And when you talk about loan amortization, being a concept we had covered before, I would just want to go very fast and remind you of what to look out for. Now, loan amount that was advanced to this investor here, we've been told an investor takes an investment loan of 150 million. So it is 150 million. Let me just put the comma style, and then I don't want any decimals there. So 150 million. Then we are told that this loan has an annual interest rate of 15%. So annual interest rate is 15% like that. Then what else are we being told there? The payments are to be made at the end of each of the next 48 months. So the repayment period is 48 months. 48 months. Now, we've been given repayment period in months. Now, 48 months, if you want to convert it into years, that will be 4 years. Yeah. So given the annual interest rate, now we also work with the period in years. And then I would want to explain something. We are being told the payments are to be made at the end of the next 48 months. Now, let us look at now what we call frequency. Now, when you are doing loan amortization, frequency becomes a very important concept that you must always remember. Now, when you talk about frequency, we are asking ourselves, what intervals is it required for you to repay back the loan? The interval of repayment. And the interval of the repayment will affect the period of repaying back the loan. It will also affect the interest rate that you are going to use when computing or coming up with the schedule. So when you talk about frequency, in this case, frequency can be annual. You can be required to pay back the loan annually. So if it is annual, then that means the period will be 1. You are going to pay it once every year. You are paying it annually. So that frequency, I would want us to use a letter, and the letter that I would prefer us to use is letter M. Letter M will always represent, the frequency that we are required to do the payment. So when you are required to pay back annually, you are going to pay back just once every year. Now, what if it is semi-annual? If you are required to pay back semi-annually, what does it mean? You are going to repay back the loan twice every year. So M becomes 2 in that case. Now, what if you are required to pay back the loan in quarterly basis? If you are required to pay it back in quarterly basis, what does that mean? How many times are you going to pay back the loan in 1 year if you are doing the remissions quarterly? Yeah, quarterly means you're paying back after every 3 months, because in a month, a year has 12 months. Now, if you want to divide the 12 months into 4 sections, that means quarterly. Now it is after every 3 months, right? So quarterly means you're paying it back in 1 year, you'll be paying it back 4 times. That is the frequency. Then, what if you are required to pay back the loan in months? In months, you know very well that 1 year has 12 months, so that the frequency will be 12. What if you'll be required to do the remissions or the payments weekly, on weekly basis? Yeah. If your repayment is on weekly basis, then how many weeks will we have in 1 year? In 1 year, you'll be repaying back in 52 weeks, right? Good. So these are the always common ways. Again, what if we go back to days? If at all you are supposed to do your repayment, you know, like daily, how many days will you work with? If the examiner tells you to work with 365, work with that. If the examiner tells you to work with 366, kindly work with what the examiner says. So those are the frequencies that we can always get in any loan amortization schedule question. So now, why is this frequency important? Frequency is important because it will always affect your interest rate and the period of repayment. Now, how does that happen? Look at the question we have here. We are told that the payments are to be made at the end of each of the next 48 months. So we are repaying back in monthly, in monthly basis. I want to just highlight the monthly basis there so that you'll be able to see it well. In months, meaning in 1 year, we're going to give, we have 12 months in 1 year. So meaning we are going to pay 12 times in 1 year. We are doing it monthly. So if that is the case, you will come here. If you want to get the monthly interest rate, you will come here and pick the annual interest rate, and then you divide it by the period, the frequency in months. And the frequency in months, we just said it is 12. You divide by 12 to get the monthly interest rate, and I will put it in percentage, and then I increase the number of decimal places like that. If we look at the period, we've seen that it is 4 years. If I want to get the periods, because I'm paying back in monthly, I will come here and pick the 4 years, but then I will go and multiply it by the number of times I'm going to pay in a year. And because it is monthly, I'm going to multiply that 4 years by 12. And you can see I'm going to do my remissions in 48, 48 months, in 48 months to cover the 4 years. So that is how the frequency becomes important. So for interest, just take that annual interest rate, divide by the frequency, which is M, represented by M. For the period, just pick the number of years given, multiply by the frequency. If your frequency is quarterly, multiply by 4. If it is monthly, multiply by 12. If it is weekly, multiply by 52. If it is days, multiply by 365, unless the examiner advises you to use 366. Those are the two alternative numbers that you can always find. Now, that's after we have the monthly interest rate, because that is our frequency that we are working with. It is monthly. After we have it, now we can go ahead and come up with our loan amortization schedule. Of course, if you review, or you are in that our last session, you are able to remember how we did our loan amortization. But I will remind you very fast. Now, how do we do loan amortization? You just come here. Because our frequency is in months, I will just write there month, and we are going to list our months from month 1 to month number 48, which we have there. So that is month 1. Then, if you remember the functionality that we use, the series functionality, I'll just use it, or I can just go the easier route by just dragging down to month number 48 like that. After I have my 48 months listed, I will go to opening balance of the loan. Opening balance for period 1 to period 48. So I will have my opening balance. Then I will have installment. I will have installment. Then after installment, because you know we are doing a loan amortization, you know that there is installment, then there is principal. Yeah, there is interest also. So I will come there, then I bring interest first, then I will come to principal. Then of course there has to be closing balance like that. So those are the elements of a loan amortization schedule, which we already covered. But even if you are not in our last session, you can still go back and review. But again, I'm here to remind you of what we already did. So that is it. Now, with that, we can now go ahead and start doing our amortization. When you do amortization of a loan, you are just repaying back. To amortize is to repay back. And what is the opening balance of the loan in period 1, in month 1? The opening balance of the loan is the actual loan amount. That's what it means. So the actual loan amount is 150 million. So I will just go and refer to it. That is the opening balance in period 1. So after that, I will come and ask myself, what is the installment? If you can remember what we did in the loan amortization, we are using a function to get the payment. Payment is also the same as installment, and it is a PMT function. So just put an equal sign, negative PMT like that. I believe you know why I'm using negative. PMT is an outflow functionality. So that's why we are using a negative to cancel out that negative, because we need to have positive figures here. So we pick the rate. Which rate are we picking? It is the monthly rate, because that is our frequency we are using. So I will pick the rate. But then remember, because the rate is remaining constant from month 1 to month 48, I'm going to fully fix it. How do I fully fix it? I fix it using F4 key. I'm fully locking it. F4 key, or if your F4 alone is not working, use function F4, or you insert the dollar signs manually. From our previous classes, you can still remember that, right? If you've not seen, kindly go back to the previous videos. You'll be able to get all that right. Then I got number of periods. Of course, they are 48. Again, this number of periods is not going to change. It is constant. The loan has to be amortized or repaid back within 48 months. No more, no less. So we are also going ahead and fixing the same. Then the present value is the value of the loan, and the loan is 150 million. That one is also not going to change. That one is also constant, because that is the loan that has been advanced to us. Then future value, we are repaying back the loan to go back to zero. We are fully repaying it back. Then we are paying at the end of the period. If at all the examiner tells you that you are repaying the loan at the beginning of every month, then you would pick one, this second option. But because we are repaying it at the end of every month, now we again pick zero, we close our bracket, and there we have our installment that we are paying there. Do not worry about the dollar sign. That one is just about some, we'll just do some editing and remove that dollar. That dollar sign has no problem there. Yeah, we are just going to do some, some simple editing to remove it, but do not worry. So now with that, we go ahead and get the interest. Now we've used PMT function to get the installment. And under interest, if you review the loan amortization we did before, you remember I showed you how to use another functionality called IPMT. And on principle, I also showed you how to use another functionality which is called PPMT. But I want to show you an easier way again. Apart from using PPMT and IPMT, you can also just decide to go direct and use the simplest ways. How do you do it? Interest, just put an equal sign, take the interest rate, which is going to remain constant also. The interest rate is going to remain constant, so I'm fully locking it. You multiply interest rate by the opening balance of the loan, and there you go. Yeah. So even as we do this, remember that installment is going to remain the same for all the periods from period 1 to period 48, the number of months. So I will just go ahead and autofill it to the last month. Interest is also, we've already set in the formula, and you can see I've fully locked my interest rate, and I've referred to the opening balance. So meaning that formula is already in Excel. Excel already knows there is this formula, and I've fully locked the interest rate. Remember to lock it, yeah, because it's not going to change. After I've done that, I will just go ahead and autofill. Don't ask, I believe that someone is not questioning how we are autofilling. This is something I explained. So if you are not in the last sessions or you've not had a chance to review the previous videos, you are losing out on something. Kindly go and check our previous videos. It is so interesting and you will know how these functionalities are very interesting. Now, principal, how do we get the principal? Principal is just the difference between the total payment, the total installment, and the interest that we are paying. That is how we are getting the principal amount that is being repaid in period one. Yeah. So once I've set that formula, I'm also going ahead to autofill it to the end. Then the closing balance of the loan is always the opening balance. Then we deduct the principal amount repaid. Do not deduct the interest paid. Interest is the cost of borrowing. So you do not deduct interest from the loan so that you get the balance of the loan at the end of every period. No. This is just a cost you're paying for having to, you are still staying with someone's money. That is the cost, the finance cost you are paying on that. So when you want to get the closing balance of the loan in each period, just deduct, get the opening balance, then you deduct the principal repaid within that period only. Get that? Good. Now, once you have done that, I've also already instructed Excel on the formula to use. So I just go ahead and also autofill, yeah, like that. Now, what is opening the second period is the closing balance for period number one. The opening balance of the loan in period two is the closing balance for the period one. So whatever closes period is what will open the next period. So that's the logic that we're using here. So I will come to period two, put an equal sign, then I refer to the closing balance in year one. No, in month one. These are not years, these are months. That is the opening in month two. So once I've done that reference, I've already instructed Excel on what to pick moving forward. So I will just go ahead here and again autofill to the end. Now, once you've done this, I can assure you your loan amortization schedule should be complete and your closing balance should be zero at the end of the 48th month. Can we check on that? Let's see if that is the case. And you can actually attest to it and see that the closing balance of the loan at the end of the 48th month is zero, meaning we have fully repaid back the loan. Are you able to see that? Very interesting, right? You can even confirm the amount of the loan at the end of the 48th month by checking on the principal column. And I will just go ahead and check on the principal column and you can see that the loan that we took is actually 150 million. Can you able to see that? You can also go ahead and get the total interest that you have paid for this loan, the total finance cost for getting this 150 million loan, and you repaid back in 48 months. You can be able to see how much interest you are going to pay for the entire loan once you repay it back at the end of the period given, which in this case is 48 months. So you can also go ahead and get the total interest that you're going to pay. And you can see you're going to pay back a total interest of 50,381,387. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how you're doing a loan amortization schedule. So to this end, this is what the examiner wanted you to do or wanted us to do for part 1. Part C, Roman number 1, calculate the monthly payment of the loan. Then we've also gone ahead to do the amortization. So monthly payment was just this amount. You see this amount of PMT, the installment. This is the amount that the examiner wanted us to get. That is the answer to part C, Roman number 1. But we've gone ahead and amortized the whole loan because that knowledge is also very important. Now, in the next video, we are going to see how we are going to use two-tailed data table to compute this Roman number 2 here. So see you in the next one. Thank you so much. And kindly, if you've not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe because you are going to lose out on something which is very, very important. And kindly follow the channel so that you'll be able to always get new knowledge and we learn together.